Presented by Prize Picks. $100 match on your first deposit. Welcome to Light Years. Appreciate everyone who's patient with us. Samus Fandiari here. Taking a little time, traveling, enjoying my summer, doing all those sort of things. So I'm in parts unknown, and I'll be traveling for the next couple of weeks. So I appreciate everyone for their patience here. Make sure to like and subscribe. But a few things have come out since my last recording earlier this week, and I wanted to speak to them, and I feel like now is the perfect time. So first things first, Joe Lacob had himself a little bit of a media week. Joe said this.
I just talked to him a little bit ago. Brandon Podziemski, I know he's not playing tonight, but he's played so well through Summer League. He's had 1 year of experience now. I just talked to him a little bit ago. He said he was actually really nervous for Summer League last year. And now having that year of experience, he feels confident this year, and his game has been growing. What did you see from him in his rookie season?
Oh, my God. He was a revelation, to be quite honest. I mean, he was one of the, all rookie team top 5 in the league. He started a whole bunch of games for us. Steve had troubles getting him off the floor. I mean, he had to have him on the floor. He was so good. He does so many things well. He's ultra confident. He's got an NBA body. He can get wherever he wants. He obviously can shoot threes. He can drive. He can pass. I mean, what can he do?
Brandon Podziemski, future NBA All-Star. Look, we've obviously all talked a ton about Podziemski on this show, not just during the year, but the last month, when increasingly it appears like the Warriors and the Utah Jazz are heavy in negotiations for Lauri Markkanen, and one of the sticking points is Brandon Podziemski. The Warriors may be considering trading him, but if they do, they don't want to attach a bunch of picks. And if they put a bunch of picks in, then Podziemski's off the table. A lot to unpack there, but to me, there was actually a more interesting Joe Lacob quote this past week, which I think offers a little more insight into the mindset. And so I'm going to pull it up right now. I'm going to let everyone listen to it. Then I'm going to tell you what it means to me. This was on the Athletics NBA show with David Aldridge and, of course, our favorite, Marcus Thompson.
Is there a part of you to say, why do you have young people on the team then? Like, forget them, trade them all, go get you another superstar to pair with Steph, and let it run right there. No, in all seriousness, is there a part of you that says, yeah, we can do this now. We can go all in now, and we're the Warriors. Like,
well, you're assuming
we'll
that
figure out a way afterwards.
Marcus, you're assuming that by trading all of your emerging young players, potentially young stars, that you are going to be better. We run analytical models on all that stuff. We will make a deal that makes us better. We look at short-term and intermediate term, and to some extent long-term as well, but that's a factor. But I can just tell you, I mean, we run those. We have incredibly complex models these guys run about how good we will be. And it's not everything what the press writes all the time or what people say in the internet blogs. So we're very aware of that. And you can't make a trade that makes you worse and then expect to be better.
That last quote cracks me up. You can't make a trade which makes you worse and expect to get better. Reminds me of Trent Dilfer when he went, you cannot lose games in the NFL and still win. The hyperbole of it's just hilarious. Like, I know what he's trying to say, but just the way he worded it was funny. But to me, the actual interesting part there is how much he stressed the analytics models they are running and how much their decision making is data driven. If you've paid attention to the Warriors since Kevin Durant left and the pandemic started, they've put a huge emphasis on beefing up the front office. When they had KD, Steph, Clay all in their prime with Iggy, Durant, they had embarrassment of riches. They were in some ways more focused on maintaining their talent than trying to find strategic edges. It's been well reported. I'm not saying this as some sort of Sam Sources thing or anything like that. Like, the Athletic guys have written it, national guys, other publications have written it. The Warriors have put an emphasis on beefing up their front office, their scouting, their analytics department. All the things you hear about other teams doing. The Celtics are most notable for it. Every MLB team is most notable for it. If you're a baseball fan, probably makes you roll your eyes because the results have not necessarily been there with the Giants, but it's the whole money ballification of sports. And the reason I think that matters and is interesting is the number one player whose statistical projections were better than, let's just say, what the old school scouts projected was Podziemski in the 2023 draft. All the numbers indicated he'd be a damn good player. All the old school scouts were going, he's not athletic enough. He's 6'4". Yeah, it's not bad size for a guard, but without a quick first step, what's he really going to be? All this sort of stuff. It's just a classic case of, new school versus old school with scouting him. And why I think it specifically matters with the Warriors is given the high profile misses they had with lottery picks, specifically James Wiseman in 2020. Let me take you back in time. 2020, all the nerds, all the stat heads, the analytical models, the people who are ahead of the curve on what you should be looking for in hidden gems said Tyrese Halliburton was the player you should be looking at in the lottery. Meanwhile, the old school scouts were looking at him and saying, can he really create his own shot? He's going to be a good glue guy, but can he really create his own shot? There was a lot of questions about him, which is why he fell to number 11. In a COVID draft, everyone liked him. He had all the intangibles, worker, great interviews, and the production in college was there. Ton of assists, low turnovers. He shot 40%, even though it was with an unorthodox shooting form. That was definitely a thing too. And on top of it, we know the Warriors liked him. It's come out over and over again that they loved him, but they felt like the upside was not high enough. So they took James Wiseman. James Wiseman, on the flip side, was the guy that all the quants were skeptical of. The high school performance, the lack of college play, a bunch of indicators that said, look, man, he is a huge project. It may work out or it may not, but I don't know if I would touch it. That was the general consensus around both of those things. Well, we know how that played out. And it's my theory that high-profile failure, and you could then point to the 2021 draft. Kuminga is by no means a failure, but we're entering year 4, and he's still got a ways to go if he's ever going to become an impact star. He just does. It's a work in progress. He could become excellent, but, year 4, year 5, what if it isn't till year 6 where he starts making that big-time impact? Andrew Wiggins was a negative impact player until 2021-22, 7 years into his career. Had all the physical tools, but same story. And then, of course, there's Moses Moody, who they drafted in the lottery, who was young. And Moody, I still have hopes for, but, he just hasn't broken into the rotation in 3 years. He hasn't done it, And meanwhile, you got Podziemski, who's more of the analytical darling pick, and he breaks into the rotation, and he doesn't break into the rotation because of some form of a bias. He breaks into the rotation because every time he's on the floor, good things happen. Slater threw out the article today. 25 of the top 30 lineups, top 33 lineups the Warriors used had Podziemski in them. And by top lineups, I mean top as in they work, not top as in they get played a lot and they don't work. His plus minus led the team. He made an impact. If you watch the games, you could see he made an impact on every level. Rebounds his ass off, plays harder than everyone, has shooting touch. The shot is definitely a work in progress, but 38% is 38%. A lot of indicators that indicate he could be a really good player. I'm not even talking about probably what his best skill is, which is his passing and his playmaking. 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Steph's never had a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio season. Neither is Draymond Green. Some guys are just better at delivering passes on time and on target, not turning it over. So to me, and it's not just the Podziemski pick, It's the DeAnthony Melton signing this offseason. It's the Kyle Anderson signing this offseason. It's bringing GP2 back. It's a lot of moves they're making that indicate to me they won't ever admit this, but they messed up with the Wiseman pick, shooting for the stars, thinking they could teach someone to play basketball and do essentially defy data. And I think they've shifted courses to being more data-driven. That's kind of why their moves have been predictable to me. They keep going after players that the stat nerds love. Lauri Markkanen is a guy who the stat nerds probably rate higher than the old school scouts. I don't mean that to say, one is right or wrong, but yeah, if you look statistically, he might measure as a top 10 offensive player. I think if you ask the average person, is Lauri Markkanen one of the 10 best offensive players in the league, they would say, come on, man, he's really good. He might even be an all-star, but top 10? What are we doing here? Relax. And so to me, that's what's interesting about it. Yes, Lacob is gassing up Podziemski. Yes, a lot of this is about leverage with the Utah Jazz not wanting to overpay and not give them 15 picks in every young prospect you want. But yes, another part of it is they're trusting their analytics staff more than they have in the past. And I can tell you for a fact, people who consume the game that way and analyze the game that way are significantly higher on Podziemski than the general consensus. So I don't know how this is all going to play out, but I am kind of taking Lacob at his word, which is they value Podziemski highly, probably more than Jonathan Kuminga at this stage. They think he's going to be a very good player. And I'm going to be honest with you, I do too. I think if the shot comes around, there's underrated upside there. It's a shooter's league. And if he can shoot the ball the way someone like Derek White or Tyrese Halliburton did, guys who were not really seen as credible shooting threats when they came in, even though they always hit a pretty comfortable percentage in college, if he can turn into a volume shooter, I don't see why he can't be a borderline all-star. I'm not saying it's going to happen next year. I'm not saying it's ever going to happen, but I'm saying I wouldn't write it off. And in the meantime, here's what you have with him. At worst, you have a guy who plays winning basketball. At worst, you have a guy who may be the best rebounding guard in the NBA in a year. I mean, 6 rebounds a game for a rookie guard is insane. You have a guy who has great vision, who keeps the ball moving, who can find shooters without turning the ball over. And you have a guy who competes his ass off on defense and generally makes the right rotation. Yes, he gambles a little too much, but he has a lot of attributes that in worst case suggest good role player. Best case, if that shot comes around, can you run him at point guard when Steph retires? Can he be a guy you run the show around? It's not going to look like Steph because I don't think he'll ever be a 30-point per game scorer. But what if he's a guy who gets you 18 to 20 points and 10 assists? None of that's off the table. And so this is my roundabout way of saying they may trade him to Utah, but if they do so, they're valuing him higher than just another draft pick. And so, yeah, I take Joe Lacob at his word on that. We'll see how the whole thing plays out. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100x your money with PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct takes. Turn $10 into $1,000. With the finals over, hoops action doesn't stop on PrizePicks. Women's basketball is heating up with stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. You could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I made my first $10 deposit and instantly received a $10 bonus. If you have the skills, you have a chance at turning your $10 into $1,000. Remember, guys, download the PrizePicks app and use code LIGHTYEARS for your first deposit match up to $100. That's code LIGHTYEARS on Prize Picks. Deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. So as free agency goes along, I'm getting, a little burnt out on it. We all know that August 6th date with Lauri Markkanen, I would guess another 10 or so days we'll have a better idea of what's going on there. Until then, it's just the endless amount of negotiation tactics. Pod's an all-star. Lauri, we want 40 picks. It is what it is. But coming up this weekend, we do have the start of the Olympics. And I know you guys have been watching the Team USA games. In my opinion, they've looked okay at times, but it hasn't really lived up to the hype so far. And our guy, Steve, getting himself into trouble on the old social media, on the old Twitter with his lineup choices. I think it's pretty funny to watch non-Warrior fans react to Steve's lineup choices. It's like, hey, guys, we told you. Smart coach, championship level coach, but that doesn't mean he doesn't galaxy brain some lineups here and there. Today they're playing South Sudan, and it's Steph, it's Drew Holiday, it's Devin Booker, it's LeBron, and it's Embiid. So I'm just going to go ahead. After having watched a few of these Team USA games, I kind of feel like I know what my ideal lineup is. And so I'm going to go out there and say it. So for me, this is their best lineup. Steph Curry at the point guard. Duh. Best player on the team. So, and he's playing out of his mind. 2 guard, it's got to be Drew Holiday. Drew is the ultimate glue guy for this team. Their best perimeter defender. He plays so well with Steph. I mean, anyone could have seen that coming. Their games mesh together so well. And quite frankly, this team's not going to have an issue scoring the ball. So having someone like Drew in there is just super useful. At the 3, I would go Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is a very good spot-up shooter who can get to his own shot. The fit hasn't been perfect at all times. Sometimes he goes for it a little too much, like he's on the Boston Celtics. But he can still space out there. And the reason I really like him out there is I think he's their best bigger wing defender. Drew Holiday is by far their best point of attack defender as a guard. But of the guys who are above 6'6", Tatum's probably the best defensively at guarding bigger wings, helping his teammates there. Should be no surprise. He's 26 years old. LeBron's 39. Like, you want to put younger legs around Steph and LeBron, or guys who can really get after it defensively. The 4, obviously, I go with LeBron. The Steph-LeBron thing has been getting better and better each game. Look, man, it makes all the sense in the world to build the team around those 2 guys. And quite frankly, who's going to be the coach to tell LeBron he's coming off the bench? And then at the 5, I think I'd mix it up. I think I'd go Bam Adebayo. Bam fits Steve Kerr's system better than any other big on this team because he's a hell of a passer and a hell of a defender, and he can do all the little things. Ultimately, I'm banking on Steph, Tatum, and LeBron being more than enough offense, and I want to put my 2 best defenders around that. Then you let Ant Edwards, who is one of the 5 best players on this team, let's not lie about it, you let him come off the bench as the pure 6th man where it's the Ant Edwards show. I thought Ant next to Steph was a little clunky, whereas when Ant got to run the second unit, he ran all over the world. So I just think it's one of those things where they're lucky enough to have all the talent in the world. Bring him off the bench a little bit. I'd put AD off the bench. I'd honestly probably go 50-50 with him and Bam and ride whichever one was playing and move Embiid out of the rotation. Like, it's just not working. My final guy in my 8-man rotation who would for sure get a bunch of minutes is KD once he's back. Olympic legend, one of the greatest snipers of all time. But I'd still have him coming off the bench because I am cognizant of the fact that Steph and LeBron and KD are older and there are some defensive issues there. And Team USA is at their best when they're using their athleticism to get out and run. So, yeah, that's the way I would do it. But curious what you guys think. Let me know what you would do lineup-wise. The Bam pick was probably a little controversial, but hey, I had to be a little bit of a hipster and mix it in there somehow. All right. Last but not least, my guy GS Dub CBA, threw out a tweet which was saying surprisingly amount of quality free agents still available out there. And he's right. Like, these are guys I'm a little surprised are still available at this point. You know, everyone from Markelle Fultz to Isaac Okoro to Luke Kennard to Precious and keep going down the line. Tyus Jones, probably the biggest surprise. And so the question is, can the Warriors pursue any of these guys? And right now, no, they don't have the roster spots. But if they do swing that big Lowry Markkanen trade, you got to assume they're sending multiple players out and they will open up roster spots. And some of these names are quite attractive if you can get them on a veteran minimum. I'm not saying you can, but I'm just looking at this. There might be some great ones here. Like, we spent a lot of time talking about Podziemski and his upside and all that sort of stuff. End of the day, if he's in the package for Lowry Markkanen, you're going to have to get another point guard. Like, just, you don't have a backup for Steph. So when I look at this list, Fultz is awesome, but he doesn't shoot the ball. And I think he's a clunky fit with Kyle Anderson and Draymond and the Warriors system. So I would say Tyus Jones, if you could get him, he's the best bet out there. That guy can really shoot the ball. He's a great point guard. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's somewhere between a backup and a starter, but he's a damn good backup point guard. Like, I'm honestly surprised he's still available. So if they could get him, I mean, that would be huge. Looking at other point guards that might be available. 1 second. We got Beverly just signed internationally, but he probably would have been my option. Devontae Graham pops to mind. He's off of a subpar year, but at his peak, the guy can really shoot it, and he's a good passer. Cannot finish inside, but hey, you can't get everything for a backup point guard. He can defend it a little bit too, so he might be a good fit for the Warriors on that front. Let's keep going. Oops. Sorry, guys, having a little bit of a tech issue here. Some other names that come to mind for me that make sense at the point guard spot. There's maybe Dennis Smith Jr., more of a defensive guard, but could help the team a little bit. And then there's also, well, to be honest, it's pretty thin out there. They might have to work a trade to get some better backup point guard options. Then there's the, what if Kuminga's in the trade? What if they get rid of Wiggins? Okay, if those things happen, whether you like the move or you dislike the move, you cannot deny they probably need another wing off the bench just to eat up rotation minutes. So Cedi Osman was a name on my guys list. Different type of player, but I could see him definitely fitting in. He could shoot the ball a little bit. Could definitely eat some minutes in the regular season. Could help the team out that way. Doug McDermott, that guy's a marksman in general. Again, not the same type of player as Kuminga or Wiggins at all, but could potentially help the team. Isaac Okoro would be probably the best get you could get, but I just don't see how that happens since he's a restricted free agent. You have to do a sign and trade, and the Warriors will probably not have cap space to make such a thing happen. Other names not listed here that potentially work. You got Reggie Bullock. Reggie Bullock could potentially help. He, a couple of years ago, was really good. You know, it hasn't been great since then. Maybe this is his chance at a reclamation project. Robert Covington is a guy who really only plays the 4 or 5 at this stage of his career, so he's not great on that front. Who else can they go look for? Maybe Jay Crowder. Maybe they can get Jay Crowder there. I mean, yeah, again, veteran minimum. Not the greatest list ever, but there are guys available in the event that they make a trade Finally, at the center position, Yurtseven is someone I could definitely see the Warriors going after. Not a starter, not a backup, but if you lose Looney, you need someone who can eat up those goon minutes in some way, and Yurtseven can do that. He's developing a shot. It's a work in progress, but his value is definitely being big, rebounding, owning the rim, that sort of thing. Could go for JaVale. He's still available out there. Maybe you get rid of, maybe if Looney's in the trade, JaVale comes back because he finally has some minutes and the ability to play on that front. Damian Jones, old friend, he's out there too. Honestly, if they need to replace Looney, I'm not saying any of these guys can play as well as Looney did 2 years ago, but they could definitely find some big men who can eat up some minutes and help them on that front. Hey, if they want a stretch 5 type, Mike Muscala is out there. He's getting older, but he can still shoot the ball. There are options out there. It's not top of mind for me right now, but it is something that is on the back of my mind when you look at the potential trade. And if they make a trade, they're going to have to find ways to fill out that roster. Okay, everyone. Appreciate you. We'll be back soon. Andy will be back with me too. Hit subscribe, like,